We have so much evidence with the mud floods, orphan trains, the Industrial Revolution, political revolutions, missing history, scripture, you name it. I've always been partial to the idea proposed by Madeline from Leaving Babylon, Jason Jack, and others that the little season began in 1776. It's actually frightening being only a month away from the 250-year anniversary, and I hope it's much later. People definitely aren't ready yet. But it seems reasonable that it would be somewhere around this time. They didn't care if these kids lived or died because they could always make more. Not to say that humans weren't an important resource for them. Even today you can look around and see they need us to pave their roads, invent new technologies, cook their meals, build their buildings. At least the ones they haven't appropriated from the Millennial Kingdom. You know, grunt work, make their lives easy. This is not only well documented in books by Charles Dickens, poems by William Blake, but also in the writings of supposed activists and legislation to handle these child assets. Entrepreneurs and philanthropists like Jonas Hanway and Robert Owen describe cities and factories filled with children with no parents ever to be seen. It was like Neverland, if Neverland was a slave labor camp. And it was a slave labor camp on a level we can barely comprehend today, even though we're still slaves ourselves. I kid you not, the good people fighting for these children's rights believed that they shouldn't start work until they were 10 years old. Yeah, they were the good ones. Where this narrative starts to lose me is when they start fabricating little anecdotes about it. It's like those obviously fictitious stories they try to make the narrative of people like George Washington and Isaac Newton appear real. But in reality, they're exceptionally stupid and don't even make sense. Chopping down a cherry tree and not lying about it, or coming up with world-changing scientific theories because an apple fell on their head, are fables that most of us should feel insulted about. They don't even try. Well, there are a few of those regarding these stork babies as well. The first is that the mothers actually paid to give their children to these foundling hospitals to have them do the raising. They say it cost the mothers £5 each. £5 in the 1700s would have been enough to raise the kid yourself. It was the equivalent to a year's wages for a woman. If a mother has any hope, and £5 is a ton of hope, that she's going to keep the child most of the time. Could you imagine getting rid of your kid because you only had a year's salary in the bank? They also tell this romantic tale that the mother would leave a piece of cloth or a coin for future identification. Huh? How does that work? They had no record keeping or logs of these kids? Even if they didn't, wouldn't you leave your name? I can't imagine how a piece of cloth or a coin is going to help a kid find their biological parents one day. It's beyond ridiculous and destroys all credibility. So where the heck did these babies come from? So wouldn't you know it, every single pagan, occultic, satanic, Freemasonic religion has some form of belief and ritual for resurrecting or creating life through sorcery. Surmising where we came from is almost too easy. They don't hide it, at least not very well. And although there may be a slight variation in their religious beliefs, they are all satanic at their core. Helena Blavatsky, famed 19th century Russian witch, occultist, Gnostic, and Freemason, wrote The Secret Doctrine, in which she discussed various ancient human races, one of them being the Lemurian race, or Third Root race, who were born of pods or eggs. She took her inspiration from many texts, one of which is the Oralinda book, which claimed to be a 3,000-year-old manual written by the Frisians, an ancient Germanic people according to this group. I only mention her because she's highly sought after in the occultic community. These books also speak of people being physically born of the earth. More New Age sounding Mother Earth imagery, but both books mirror Jasheran imagery and have a huge following in the occult world even today. To be fair, we don't even have to leave canon since God created Adam out of dust. Definitely a similar theme across many of these works, as all satanic offshoots derived from the original Jewish text. Many of these books I mention are called forgeries by mainstream narrative and legitimate by many researchers. And the former may well be right, but since most of our history has been lost and replaced with very poorly developed stories, I'm inclined to believe that anything called a forgery simply fell through the cracks when they were trying to erase our past. The theme of creating life from non-living matter has been established in these Gnostic, Rosicrucian, Hermetic, occultic, Freemasonic, satanic texts. Let's be honest, they're all the same. They got their cue from the Old Testament though, so let's dig into the application side of things. Paracelsus was a 16th century Swiss doctor and alchemist, heralded today as the father of toxicology. He also had strong religious views that put him at odds with the Catholic Church, but he was admired by the Rosicrucians. Interesting. As you would suspect, his work is also highly regarded among occultists and mystics. Of course, he believed in a female deity, which is in keeping with the Mother Earth theme. He believed that science and religion should be connected, and he's right, you find God in the details of science. But like the Hermetics, he wanted to try and connect with his God through sorcery. In his book, De Natura Rerum, he claims to have created homunculus, or artificial men in the laboratory. And these weren't even the first test tube babies. Remember the legend of Faust? Johann Georg Faust, also a 16th century alchemist? He lived shortly before Paracelsus and is known for making a deal with the devil and, among other things, gaining the ability to create a homunculus in a lab. Is that the plural? Homunculus? Homunculuses? Homunculi. Anyway, Faust is clearly the inspiration for Paracelsus and all other alchemists. Alchemy being the scientific arm of the occult. We could also talk about the Mandragora homunculus here, alchemically created from dirt and body fluids, but Paracelsus says they're just misidentified homunculus, so it's all the same. So it's documented that we have Satan worshippers creating human life in the name of their master, and we know that even to this day the occult still practices these dark arts. It's very reasonable to assume that this was the breeding ground or early testing stages for the creation of a slave labor force of humans with no prior knowledge of the past to make us easier to control. Once you break away from the Old Testament, you get to the true foundational documents of the Jewish faith. And they all believe in resurrection when their Messiah returns. Of course, Christians also believe in resurrection, but that's divine intervention. We don't engage in the practice ourselves, that's occultic witchcraft. The Zohar, or Kabbalah Jewish Mysticism Handbook, is where they start breaking away from the standard biblical resurrection. And don't think of this as some obscure religion. You know those red bracelets that powerful people from all walks of life wear? Yeah, they're Kabbalah, and it's everywhere. And it's easy to see why. There hasn't been a period of the little season so far where it hasn't benefited their earthly desires. And Kabbalah is where we actually see practical application, although they don't go into specifics. They posit the luz bone, a small almond-shaped bone in the spine containing their souls, can be used in ceremonies to resurrect the dead. Named Luz after the immortal city of Luz, indestructible and inconquerable. I was not able to find the ritual description, but luckily we were able to confirm it is still practiced thanks to the tunnels discovered under the world headquarters of the CL in Brooklyn. I'm sure you all remember the stained mattresses, baby carriages, and other creepy stuff down there. David Saltzman describes their practices so casually in this interview from There Goes the Neighborhood that it almost scares me.
David, if you could, explain why was there a mattress in the tunnels and what is the stain? A lot of folks are wondering, is this stain feces?
No, it's not feces.
What is
it? It's blood, and basically, we did rituals. I said that before. There were some rituals that we do in the tunnels, and sometimes the rituals might involve someone who recently died, and we'll bring him down there, and we're trying to do a ritual to bring back the Messiah, which is a Schneer Singh.
So can you explain the rituals, and why does it involve a mattress?
I don't want to go into the details of the rituals, but basically we don't put the body on the floor, we put the body on the mattress, and sometimes we might make an incision somewhere on the body, and a little bit of blood will come out.
So yeah, no big deal. It's not feces, just the blood of the corpses we use to resurrect people. No doubt, this is still a major part of their religion. You can do a quick internet search to find out about the Golems. There are so many books on the topic, too many to name for sure. But quickly, they are beings created by very spiritually evolved and educated rabbis. The Talmud even claims that Adam was originally created as a golem. So according to Jewish beliefs, only those who are close to God have the ability to summon these creatures. Rabbis have been claiming to animate life from inanimate matter using spells for centuries. They are described as being used for servant work, surprise, surprise. Eleazar of Worms, a German Jewish rabbi and mystic, wrote the first known text that actually gives clear instructions for creating a golem, which involves the use of virgin soil, ritual cleansing, a verbal ritual, so a spell, and final activation through the use of Hebrew characters or names. Mosh Idol's book Golem appears to be the standard academic text on the history and nature of these creatures. It details the magic used to conjure them with the use of permutations. As we know, Kabbalah is a very numbers-based mystic religion. In fact, if you remove Satanism from most variations of the Jewish religion, you have nothing left. In his commentary on Sefer Yetzirah, Rabbi Akiva wrote that you knead the virgin soil from the mountains with water to form a dough. Then you shape the body, head and limbs like a life-size gingerbread man with a letter on each of them. Then it starts getting complicated. The general permutation is done for each lem of each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, with every other letter into letter pairs. Then you combine each letter of the alphabet with each vowel sound. This just forms the Golem's body. In the second stage, you must combine each letter of the alphabet with each letter of the Tetragrammaton, their name for God, and pronounce each of the resulting letter pairs with every possible vowel sound. This is the activation spell process. Sounds crazy, right? But then why did they keep this practice for so many centuries if it didn't work? Let's break this down as simply as possible using the evidence at hand. Entire religions devoted to Satan who have run the world since the end of the millennial kingdom and still do today dedicated their efforts for centuries into creating life from non-living matter. Then, most of the population dies, and suddenly a new population appears out of nowhere with no legitimate explanation as to why. Seems they perfected the technology. This population was put into slave labor, which has evolved into the wage slaves that we are today, presumably as a way to keep us obedient so we don't revolt. Once they manufactured this slave labor force, the practice seems to have been lost and forgotten as their servants were and still are able to reproduce on their own. But they will soon be eliminating and replacing us with AI. This technology will do the same work, but probably much more efficiently and without any of the headaches associated with humans like sprawl, waste, government, brainwashing. We have to look at it from the perspective of the people who run the world. They are obsessed with AI. Every dollar possible has been diverted to this technology, and they can't stop talking about it in the news or government. Even though the technology is not and might not ever get there. But it will be so much easier for them. We were the original AI. Humans created by a cultic ritual to be the slave labor for Satan's servants in this little season. But I don't think they're going to get to enjoy that life, because the end is approaching faster than they can develop this technology. On the other hand, none of this ends until Satan chooses to march on the camp of the saints, which could be an army of AI soldiers long after we're gone. Just like all the fictional fantasies tell us, we are the creation of our own demise. We are building our replacements. So, I propose that we are the descendants of conjured beings. Regardless, we're still the descendants of slaves created by Satan worshippers one way or the other. And it makes a lot of sense why they see us as subhuman. The Talmud actually tells them that we are to be treated like animals. God bless us all into these final days. May our spirits stay stronger than the ever-increasing temptations that surround us.
Huh? Oh, my back.